Good morning, friends. My name is Pradeep Puri, and it's my extremely sad duty today to welcome you to this remembrance meeting for Shakti Sinha. I can say with complete certainty, Shakti was probably the closest friend I ever had. And if Shakti were here today, I'm sure he would say much the same. Shakti and I were fellow travelers on this journey of life for almost 50 years. 48 years to be precise. We both joined Hindu College History Honours as Fachas, as we were then called in 1973. Though we'd come here with sadness and grief, I think it's important to celebrate the life of a wonderful and exceptional human being. I know Shakti had no religious affiliation. He was not a very religious-minded person, but he had an abiding interest and fascination with Buddhism. And I think it's only appropriate we commence this remembrance meeting with chanting by monks from the International Buddhist Confederation.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, dhammang saranang gacchami, sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami, tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Iti piso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho, vijjacharana sampanno sugato lokavido, anuttaro purisa dhamma sarati satta deva manusana buddho bhagavati. Swakato bhagavata dhammo sanditiko akaliko, ehipasiko panayiko paccatam veditabbo vinyohiti. Supatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho, Ujupatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho, Nyayapatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho, Samecipatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho. Yadidang cattari purisa yugani atta purisa puggala, esa bhagavato savaka sangho. Ahuneyo pahuneyo dakhineyo anjali karaniyo, Anuttarang punya khetang lokasati, Ewang Buddhang Sarantanang Dhammang Sanghang Ca Bhikkhavo Bayang Vachambita Tang Valo Mahangso Nahissati Karaniyamatta Kusalena Yantang Santang Padang Abhisamecha Sako uju ca suju ca suwajo ca samudu anatimani Santu sako ca sumbaro ca appakicho ca sallahu gauti Sandindriyo ca nipako ca appagabbo kuleso ananugido Naja kudang samacari kinci yena vinyo pari upavadiyo Sukhino va khemino hontu sabbe satta bhavantu sukhitata Ye kicipana bhutati tasava thavara namasesa Digava eva mahantava majjimarasaganugatula Dithava eva aditha ye chadure vasanti avidure Bhutava sambhavesiva sabbe satta bhavantu sukhitata Naparo parang nigo beta natimane katachina kanchi Byaro sanapatika sanya nanyamanye sadukamicheya Mata yatha niyang putang ayusa eka putang narakhi Evampi sabba bhutesu manasang bhavayi aparimanam Metanca sabba lokasming manasang bhavayi aparimanam Odang adoca diriyanca asampadang avirang asapatam Titang carang nisinno vasayano vayavatasya vigadamido Etang sading aditya brahma metang viharang idamaho Dithanca anupagamma silavadasanena sampanno Kamesu vinayagedang nai jatu gabbasiyang punaretiti Yando nimitang avamanggalanca Yoca namapo sakuna sasado Papagaho dosupinang akandang Buddhanubhavena vinasamanto Yando nimitang avamanggalanca Yoca manapo sakuna sasado Papagaho dosupinang akandam Dhammanubhavena vinasamanto Yando nimitang avamanggalanca Yoca manapo sakuna sasado Papagaho dosupinang akandang Sanghanubhavena vinasamanto Dukkha patacani dukkha bayang patacani bayang Soka patacani soka hontu sabbe pipanino Etavata catummehi sampadang punya sampadang Sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata Sabba buddha nubhavena sada sutti bhavantu te Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata Sabba dhammanubhavena sada sutti bhavantu te Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata Sabba sanghanubhavena sada sutti bhavantu te. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Mangal ho, sabka mangal.
सबका मंगल हो, सुखी हो, मंगल हो.
都也灭老老阳光故作决定这别我老马面都这我有把三不送见别子东马把也人间这对这些你都见别的我这总的早也拉么三界关键我你哪怕我们这边的老学姐讲的中国中教育这就也不娘但是我也老是闹我弄的这个son走三多没有我拉子都把教导多些讲我学习讲的我都多这算的也就嘛就来就的就说别去那么人去解决这些拉子拉走拉走路前边见的我在东北家在那边过夜到街街中走街就别碰碰那到的些我也有些就早些从那家就想把我把不着就你这些中要拉出也黄把你我在就那些上我一天把那小姐但我这些我就拉毛一当经过拉做到上街江山把我住当做叫做我的就在当我做多些上的我也我在家就让现在的也先把那天朝也没得我走的来就能都上街他就拉毛也他跟家中把我按着去就送出去推荐往给这些天不行前道上去着我会这样他走的街上跑这些多这样教育现在真理解将会那么快就像我也也当我把我一切把当当就把当你做面你多些的往前跑赢我说我往就讲这些了站在那么人间的不过都一见下边路家子让人家我看见一些那样我都这样教育大家我们这边我也拿着我讲给那边我就走路你我把家去跑出去把别人的人间走进现在马路就有我见过几次拉没下老家子那些东宝上街关键我这这些东大街教育你把这关键问那拉年王真切拉马那老家子这走就就别拉马到人切就走教育大街了这些每个都要叫自己选择两边了这桥的路要回去走拉马过去了那走就人家做不完你为了人家我把那有留他绝对这些大节目东坡三花真话别连毛这边没多少大把那个这些北京这边没着也想见我我真就拉拉的你打都不让我这么做当什么在我在阿公看不见的我光这个别别就做些我有光的就人家觉得这些动画他没有就是龙婆婆老早让我接着他也来就业当年就业早中给早扎这肉这些个身边全当都有他们出叫我着急龙婆的业界人前得到就有人接送公开街边的交通走走咱们老君都会的先不大爷曾经不就先给就交工都现在老我赢没下一这也先叫做我这些那个留我就是 大东街别关节也着急，接天乐别让心，我所街别接多气阳照，我所街别正所莫着心，拉萨人也拉面来点饼，我自己自拉毛你经。空国党的三百真业绩，日日别别交接动画的，家境我当着妈妈老祖，江东宝云对村叫做野花老祖君子传绝业，这辈就是老金绿招么，现今我今天的破女座，再多就没家家能家不，趁着人家的有些气，求个让心这样的为人，也没论证马上就临地。当当将就三两就拉吧，年末学校早已那准备，上坡门就让那走动，夜夜就那真不拉闹，那个就是忙碌扫动。别得那没见的别了，接大接早有让家家跑，土地觉得家妈就是下线了前没就当把女，现在让现在忙跟着样，没拉就有家把当姐姐，这个这样家有那么了，大家上班的别有让我就就是帮着的。大爷们的偏的关键字，见到有当的当别别去，三节七节讲话往多少，多结果老姐姐没嘛有，三家往给结果三毛多，大家没不切切是的吧，年年没到他不去说说，得到这边那个就有错，俺的兄弟就是老毛爷，在那关头真没钱自由，上家多去讲话。的讲的这些那做就马天老不做就用说的，我们这边的话你别做，那边的话上老说话的。俺那的话是别老，电报也别用的就电报，马的就别多做这些，太少别别想老少稳定。我说了到了去做得到，有到就没我到就谢谢。人家就是知道就别别，多去真别做老少忘的。三年长辈前辈马着别，马着都给你都着完了。那些老早就想当包爷，全国都就想老少忘的。特别年毛头就那就的，全家没别着我忙不了。年月在花年我装特别，全国都就想老少忘的。要说就讲我当起来，看见婆婆不管就咋样，大家在那些都两马别，全国都也想老少忘的。那些我说姐姐我落了，当起就成长人中年里，他们自己找我真这边，全国都也想老少忘的。姐姐公啊姐姐要拉倒，这些人啊要有什么的，这个王不让就做的，男女老嘛就老少忘的，关键也写上我的教育，全国可乐教育男女，人家教导都是真别做，咱就当别光老少忘的，也没人家我也让怕的，也没得有国家关就他，他们他这我做的大姐，讲究人会就老少忘的。那老母亲的一当亲的俺的亲家的天的上的家就把都亲密家亲密所以那大把都亲密大要突袭家去三子老司机心中我这工作的也中间把去扫今天老母亲的一当亲的看着亲家的天的上的家就把都亲密家亲密所以那老母都亲密 道要突击超就上则老，世界就中而中观者，天界超则八界所，全年老毛全年一道，全年看着就用的，天天上则长就八道，前面叫做没做别的当八道，前面道要突击超就上则老，世界就中而中观者，天界超则八界所。大人走走我当兵的，男人我做出去难道的，这些我才看没听我说，人大去叫兄弟当女警，我说人大去叫听巴黎，这些都去难道往西东，关键都去那么你把去，姐姐特别亲你老研究当不记着那么老，去经会别说我当兵的，天来在我广播经济的，一心去说三不经济路，人家上经济别的叫的，你看就都现在说的，对面在这讲我没有毛，天天两步两步经济路。年少东安八月没见你，年年混就上了叫出去，天宝介绍他打住八老，正把路人家把见见路，那大年毛把浪当住住，东安上去就在忙不起，咱们就说是做钱包的，咱们学着接我见见路，人家在这找人我话的，我也知道条约老板。万寿马匹最近闹春天，大皮健身怎么前进路？娘大着我这是大鸡毛，样样真气强别说说你，天边不拉车也马心头，军民年纪叫我前进路，龙儿长毛草要没得劲，天蓝哪有出息没把你，大到现到结果也没劲，现在我我结果前进路。让你想把身边兄弟的，没得动我这边就做你，年年的让我都中间的，那这的是就没前进路，妈妈接着的让我别落，到医院的就让我做。让我的大大街上老娘，所有结果怎么前进路？到那些保障对我脑洞，都往前的把些怎么移？越大越大越往多别落，那些那些都把前进路。让些这些我老会结果，妈妈姐姐也能会这些，这些大些这些难做老，娘里娘不给我爷爷路。大姐姐姐咱别叫我的天当着我滚到光边端，叫我姐姐路上长毛一天别年不人都操心我是饶兵我危险看住，在那的我马里就为你今日在我的中家走，下辈子的马路的就讲究真就这么也马也把脑解决，家娃娘包没包养我的我都别
I request Surabhi to come and make the traditional offering to our Buddhist monks.
सुखं बलं
भवतु सर्वमङ्गलं रक्षन्तु सर्वदेवता सर्वभूतानुभावेन सर्वसम्मानुभावेन सर्वसङ्गानुभावेन सदा सुखी भवन्तु ते।
My late mother, while joking, would always remark that Shakti was probably the third son in the family. Therefore, it's fitting that another member of the Puri household, my brother, the Union Cabinet Minister Hardeep Puri, who's probably known Shakti almost as long as I have, to share with us his remembrance of Shakti. Hardeep.
Shakti was so much a part of our lives that it is difficult to come to terms with the fact that he is no longer with us. When Pradeep said that I had known him as long as he has, I would also add that perhaps I have known him longer than most of you who are here today. At a personal level, I interacted with him when he was a young undergraduate student at Hindu College. Full of energy, spark, intellectual wit. Then, when he was in the academy, and I rejoiced in seeing his career graph rise and achieve professional achievements one after the other. I was not surprised that he went on to perform roles which normal civil servants don't have an opportunity. He was a very prominent member of Prime Minister Vajpayeeji's secretariat. He went on to the World Bank, served in difficult places like Afghanistan. But as we grieve and join Surabhi, Karthik, and Suhasini, I know it's a little difficult at this point, but I think the time has now start recalling him with emotion now. I was with him till 10:15 the previous night. I believe he was there at a friend's birthday celebration. Then Lakshmi told me he and Surabhi ji spoke, and then he went quietly. I think we need to celebrate an extraordinary life, one that was characterized by talent and versatility. And even the short conversation, short in the sense it must be in half an hour, 40 minutes that we spoke. Some of the others are here. He was full of ideas, even then. There are certain things he wanted me to do. Not at a personal level. He's saying, I think you should be doing this, that, and the other. But that talent and versatility was strengthened by what I always regarded as something greatly admirable, a sense of public duty, commitment, devotion. And I don't want to take more time because the grief is personal, the loss is personal. But I always had the feeling that there was so much more inside him. And I asked him, how much time does the university assignment in Gujarat take? He said, 1 week in a month. Then I asked him, how do you keep yourself occupied for the remaining 3 weeks? And I had some ideas on that also. So that is the man that our friend was. There were times in my life when if you needed to reach out to someone for sensible advice, wise counsel, Shakti was the man to go to. And equally, I think I had the privilege, wherever I've served, with perhaps the exception of my first posting in Japan, I think I received him everywhere. Sometimes in circumstances, I remember one of our closest friends had to be suddenly operated, and I was alone in Geneva, and suddenly I find Shakti there. And he and I spent a long evening. Of course, our friend turned out all right, but that is the man that Shakti was to his family, and I see them here, to his friends who have come in great numbers. So whilst the loss is personal, I know I see my friends from my university days, the college principal, Kavita ji is here. I think personally I will speak to them, and we need to do something to ensure that our personal loss and affection is translated and embodied in something perhaps that the Hindu college could do that, and I'd be very happy to convene a few friends to do that. Thank you very much. And to Surabhi, Karthik, and Suhasini, all I can say is, Shakti is gone, but please don't forget, we are here, and we will continue to try and fill that void. I don't know to what extent we can, but equally, we count on all of you and the other members of the family remaining with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. As some of you may be aware, Shakti has had a long association and fascination for Buddhism. And for the past 2 years or so, he was Director General of the International Buddhist Confederation. It's therefore fitting to request the Venerable Dr. Dhammapiya, who is the Director General of the International Buddhist Confederation, to come and say a few words.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. A very good morning to all the members of our Shakti Sinha. I would say family members in some way. We have been associated with Shakti Sinha either as friends or relation or in official terms. Today, he is no more with us. In IVC, we got him since 1st November 2020 as Director General of IBC. We have seen the kind of vitality, energy, ideas, vision that he had put to take IVC to a very high level. He had many plans and many things he spoke to me that Bhantiji, how we should take IVC and raise the profile of IVC. Not only in India, at a global level, so that the Vishwaguru, the Buddha was there in India who taught the teachings of metta, karuna, mudita, upekha, the compassion, the maitri, that we have to reach out to different parts of the world, which the world needs today. That he was talking to me almost all the time. A person is a unique person, and our Shakti Sinha was unique from different perspectives. He never had any kind of tiredness in his face. Whenever, anywhere, I would ask him to come or do something, he was always ready, full of energy, anytime. Of course, life is a journey. The journey, it goes on, like a train which moves and on and on. There are many passengers that get down at different stations on the journey. So also we all are taking the journey in our own way. And our Shakti Sinha got down in some station, but we cannot get down. We have to move on, taking the memories, ideas, and lessons from Shakti Sinha. I pray and extend my condolences and support emotionally in all other ways to the members of Shakti Sinha family. Whatever kind of help or anything you need from IBC, kindly let us know. We are there with you always. I pray Shakti Sinha. In Buddhism, we believe or understand there is another continuation of life wherever he is. May he exist in a plane which is full of peace and happiness and tranquility. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Dhammapiya. It's difficult in the space of a few minutes to try and encapsulate the memories of half a century. That was my journey with Shakti from 1973 till a few days back. But thinking back, there are a few episodes that stand out on a lighter vein, which few people here would probably recollect or connect with. I think it was the year 1982 or 83. I just come back to Delhi from my posting somewhere far away in Karnataka, and Shakti and Surabhi were newly married and staying in Pragadevya hostel. So I think it was Shakti was there and Pradeep Chibbar, who's hopefully tuned in from Berkeley. And I think Shankar Das may have been there also. So I came from the railway station, went home, changed, and drove across, spent half an hour with them, had a cup of tea. And thereafter, I believe Pradeep and Shakti was still in his pajamas and wearing a nightgown, took off to what in those days was called a spare. So we left the house, which was in Pragati Vihar, around 9:30 in the morning, came back at 5 o'clock in the evening, and Pradeep, and I think maybe Subhash was part of it, I'm not so sure. The point is not to undermine or belittle anyone's memory, but this man had not an artificial bone in his body. He was totally transparent, no ego. He could immerse himself in any situation, any scenario. I don't know if you've been following some of the social media tweets. There was a particularly revealing one by a gentleman called Xavier Costantino from Goa, where he talks about a very insular Goan institution, Goan Portuguese institution, which is something akin to a Catholic club, where, forgive me if I'm being a bit impertinent, but they really look down upon everyone else. Shakti was not only taken on board as almost founding member of this Goan Portuguese kind of club, but when there was a seminar in Goa in which Constantino talks about in his post, Constantino was made to feel at home in this very insular small community by Shakti. And this, I think, speaks volumes to the person. There was another incident, I think 4 or 5 years ago. My wife and Shakti and Surabhi, we had gone to Bir in a place called Bling, which is the paragliding capital of the country. And it was very windy there, and we wanted to leave as quickly as possible. Suddenly, I find a Bengali gentleman wearing a monkey cap, and this is sometime in June or July. I said, "Hey, Shakti Babu." And Shakti Babu turned around and started having a deep conversation with this gentleman who was actually wearing a parachute and about to go paragliding. He was actually standing almost at the precipice. And Shakti and this gentleman engaged in a conversation for, I think, half an hour or so. He was completely oblivious that Surabhi, my wife, and I were actually feeling quite cold. This is, again, the quality of the man. He would be one with whoever he met. And this is a very unique trait, and I think this is what makes Shakti what it is. Unfortunately, because of COVID restrictions, our attendance today is fairly limited. But if more people had come, I'm sure each and every one of them would have a personal memory. And I think we're all richer for the fact that our lives crossed, and we were enriched by our interaction with Shakti. I don't know how many of you are aware that he had signed a book deal with Penguin to write a book on Afghanistan, and he was, in fact, complaining, I have only 6 months to complete it. My only regret, and which is something that Hardeep mentioned, he had so many more books inside him. He was full of ideas. He was not your typical IAS bureaucrat. I mean, he thought completely out of the box. He would come up with solutions that the underlying, if there was one leitmotif of his public engagement, it was empathy and compassion. There were no preconceived ideas from where he came that us and them, it was only us for him. And if you are familiar with the story, and he had quite a long association with Afghanistan. He was going there when it was actually unsafe. And I know Shankar Das went and met him, and I would plead with him, this is not worth it. But he went. And the affection that he won, and I know some people from Kabul Afghans also, the affection with which they regarded him as one of their own. This is something very, very unique. In conclusion, I can only say this much, that what Hardeep said, friends and family will retreat, and Surabhi and Karthik and Suhasini will feel alone, but you'll never be alone. Each one of us will be there, because I know if we don't do what we are required to do, Shakti will be watching over us. So now I request a few more of our acquaintances, close acquaintances of Shakti. Can I request Subhash Mishra, who also has an acquaintance going back 40 plus years. I'm not sure it's 48, but it's certainly 40 plus. Subhash, please.
Never thought that this day will arrive and get an opportunity which I never wanted, to speak for somebody who is so much part of us. I know words will fail, and I would be finding it impossible to make an extemporaneous speech for Shakti. So therefore, I have jotted down a few points, and with your permission, I'm going to read it out. From the day I met Shakti, Sunny was saying so many years, 45 years plus ago, I became part of his unregistered fan club. You know, we all been, before me, people have been talking about that, how anybody who met him became a part of his club. An association of mortally humans that had no entry norms. Anyone who met Shakti once was a willing and accepted member. And everyone was a member for life. How could you not be part of his world? He never said a derogatory word about anyone, always sidestepping the puddle of dispatch. Over time, the group had some trustees. Pradeep has already mentioned the names of some of those trustees. It just happened. We have gathered here in grief, but also to hold on to the joys of life with him. I don't remember when Shakti and I became brothers. Possibly, we started like that. In his unannounced departure, I've lost a sounding board, a person with whom to dwell on everything from sublime to the sundry. Everyone loves Shakti. It's like everyone loved Raymond, you know, the serial. Everyone loves Shakti. Of course, a few envied him for his brilliance, his memory, and his impossible data retrieval system. How could he remember so many things, and how could he get it out so quickly? I mean, I have never seen in any other human being. Some quipped that his memory improved with the descending day. Having spent early mornings with him too, I disagree. He was always at his best. There was nothing about politics, history, geography, arts, religion, or sports that he did not know. He perhaps did not realize it, but he was a gifted teacher. He taught without judging. A few moments with him were enough to learn something new every single time. He was never conscious of his image, what people thought of him. But during the last year, it worried him when he felt that someone was upset with him. I tried to reassure him that it does not always take two to tango. People get upset for their lack of acceptance of the realities. He was ready with an earnest desire to help anyone who asked him for help. His last message was to me at 1 in the night. The morning did not arrive for him. Before going to sleep, he joked with Surbi, Kartik, and Suhasini. I got to know that night that he talked about wanting to go on a holiday. Nobody knows when, after that, he decided to go alone. I want to ask him so many things, to complain about his headstrong, unilateral decisions, but how does one question an eternal silence? This is not like leaving an excellent UN assignment or leaving the government job because he could not agree with the attitude of the higher-ups. This exit is about forever the blue skies. He believed in Buddha, as we have seen, therefore understood that life is about grief and accepting it. But he never displayed his own. He is now unfettered. But we are in the clutches of memory, which will shadow us till death finds us one by one. ज़माना बड़े शौक से सुन रहा था, हम ही सो गए दास्तां कहते कहते. Let us remember him in the words that he spoke and wrote. Let us remember his helping hand. Let us remember him in his frank smile. Let us remember him how he lived his life. And here I cannot stop by saying Om Shanti Om. I have to add cheers, because that's Shakti. Cheers, salud, Shante, skol in Valala, and Kampe.
Thank you, Subhash. I would now request Keval Sharma, who was a colleague, UT Kada, and I think Shakti and Surabhi, if I can, Keval won't mind my saying so, were also responsible for change in Keval's matrimonial status in life when we were posted in Goa.
Respected Mrs. Surbi Sinha, dear Karthik and Suhasini, every member of the family and relatives present here and friends here and linked to us in the media. It was at 11:56 hours in the morning of 4th October that I had just reached Jammu by an early morning flight. A call came from our common friend and he broke to me the most unexpected of the news. Dear Shakti's personal driver had called him and told, Sahib did not wake up that unfortunate day. Our friend was already rushing to meet dear Mrs. Sinha and their children, Karthik and Suhasini. It didn't help me not to believe this sad news. A new truth had dawned. My dear elder friend Shakti was gone. I thought of Mrs. Sinha and their children as to what they would be undergoing. My wife Ninit was not by my side. Tears rolling down my eyes, I told my immediate Jammu staff that a very dear friend of mine was no more, and I was rushing to Delhi to connect with unfolding events. I could reach Lodi crematorium around 5:30 p.m. Our friend Mr. Sinha was eternally gone physically from our midst by then. I met Mrs. Sinha, Karthik and Suhasini in their home. With this swell, I realized the house would now be without Shakti always. Mrs. Sinha was processing the unfolding happening. More I looked at Karthik and Suhasini, more I thought how our children would feel similarly anguished if I were suddenly not to be. Shakti Sinha, I never called out to him by first name, but I am going to call him now on. For Shakti was like an elder brother to me, always, always. I am the only son of my parents. With Shakti, I didn't possibly need an elder brother. He was always there for me. I shall miss him. There were decades still for us to go and to mingle, give him love and receive his love, his freshness and brightness that was akin to the sunlight. Always an alert and a mindful presence, Shakti was extraordinarily vigilant in my chats and conversations with him. He never forgot what I told him ever. Panditji, he would call out to me fondly. How my 36 years long association ended in a jiffy that day became unexplainable. To cope up, I called home that evening a former Buddhist monk well known to Shakti and me. Friend Shakti in late 2012 had invited me to join him in Deer Park Institute at Bir in Himachal Pradesh for a meditational retreat. Shakti had already been going there for some years, I learned later. I trusted Shakti and believed in the love and affection of his invites and joined him. We both shared a modest room in 1 week silent retreat led by a Czech monk. I had until then not much knowledge about Buddha's teachings. Buddha Jayanti was only a holiday. As for memory from school books, the young prince had left home one night, possibly for all of us. A Venerable Rinpoche put this way in a talk. Why the prince left home. The talk is available on the YouTube. What Buddha found for the human race, I didn't know until then. The Lord Buddha advocated middle path is only what I knew. I owe it to Shakti for my life to turn a new page at that juncture over 9 years ago. Into my early 50s, I was questioning what was my life all about then. This journey with Shakti to Deer Park commenced a period of new learning and reflection for me to embody the truth of Buddha as much or as little I have been capable of. For Shakti, it was both an internal journey and an external engagement. He would assist whenever he could the Buddhist Sangha in whatever way possible with the objective to support this part of the ancient Indian wisdom. This background recently led Shakti to accept to be the Director General of the International Buddhist Confederation, an engagement he was in until this very last day. I will never forget this initiation and hand-holding of Shakti. It has eventually brought me in contact with some of the greatest teachers and their teachings, including from His Highness the Dalai Lama and Samdang Rinpoche, a great monk who calls himself and lives like a bhikkhu and was the Prime Minister of Tibetan government in exile for 2 terms. In Buddhist thought, we are born again as we leave this physical body. While on the Mother Earth, we are a new person every moment, every hour, each day. The fact Shakti left so early has similar significance for me as of the prince who left home. Each of us present here is a new person, profoundly thoughtful from the moment we have come to know of the passing away of our dear Shakti. The inbuilt sacrifice of Shakti and Sinha family in this happening that has brought us together today will mold me and you each moment and each day for the better when we think of Shakti and his love for us and his essence in our life. Shakti was my first boss when I joined in Goa as Deputy Collector in 1985. Both Mr. and Mrs. Surbi Sinha were young. Little Karthik was already around, very sweet as he is even now. Suhasini, darling of her father, arrived later in October 1988, a month after our own first child was born in Goa in the same hospital at the hands of a common doctor. I was a countryside boy into a prestigious service. Shakti knew well civil services. His dad, late Shivaji Sinha, belonged to the Indian police. My experience working under Shakti as Deputy Collector was delightful. He was a guide par excellence. He never made me feel small. There were in him eyes and hands to raise me. I had then met Nineth, yet my wife-to-be. Shakti and Mrs. Sinha played a sweet and loving role during our courtship. On the day of our marriage, Shakti stood by my side as my witness and signed in the records of the church in Devanagari script. Mrs. Surbi Sinha played the role of elder sister in conducting me to the altar. By the time I moved out of Goa, foundations of a great friendship to be had been laid. Shakti was amazingly loving to me and my family. He and Mrs. Sinha took to Nineth very affectionately. Never ever Shakti hesitated to have me in his space, including the intimate space of home. Both Shakti and Mrs. Sinha would always welcome us. These deeply felt exchanges over the decades have strengthened my faith in the human connection in general and my raison d'etre to be in this world. Shakti's expansiveness helped me renew and drop some outmoded ways of perceiving and in finding more breadth and dimension in my life. Shakti was part of my new experiences that came into my life while meeting my wife Nineth, in making new friends, many of whom are here, and the Sangha. He was an affirmative voice to the leaps my career was taking. I will always have deep gratitude for my friend Shakti. Shakti was very devoted to all his friends and was a great friend of his children, Karthik and Suhasini. Till the end, he never lost energy, optimism, and zest for life, always maintaining buoyant spirit till his last breath. He had a great sense of humor, a bit of mischievous streak, and was never an angry man. Shakti was never pretentious with his pedigree. he incorporated everyone. Shakti was not a typical civil servant. He was more like the French civil servants who exercise responsibility and political power with a great engagement while working with ministers. Shakti was like that while in the Prime Minister's office or with a union minister, and even when heading a department or an administration. After retirement, he dedicated himself to writing the book, Vajpayee, The Years That Changed India, in which he recounted his experiences. To outsiders, Shakti will be remembered through this and other books, papers he edited and wrote, and his public talks. To Mrs. Surbi Sinha, dear Karthik and Suhasini, me, and all of you, and his friends who knew him personally, Shakti will be perennially present in our mind. We are all pilgrims on this earth. Shakti will be greatly missed, but his cherished memories will remain etched in my heart always. Thank you. Om Shanti.
Thank you, Keval. What Keval perhaps forgot to mention was that Shakti helped organize something which has never happened before, a wedding at the monastery in Bir, which is probably the first and only time it has ever happened. It was Keval's daughter's wedding. I now request Sanjay Kaul, who's also a batchmate, who's known Shakti for, I think, at least 35, 40 years or plus, to come and say a few words.
Shakti was not only a good friend and batchmate. Surabhi and I have a special connection. Our families are connected through my cousin Geeta Kaul, I think, who's also here today. And Surabhi always called me her nephew. See, what struck us when we got to know Shakti, even before I joined the academy, was his encyclopedic knowledge. He knew data and statistics, not only the rough statistics of who was born when, but the details of their lives, and almost on every subject you could think of. And that has been my first memory, what I can recall of Shakti. Thereafter, as we got to know him much better, and not too often, you found his wit as something very unique. He had a very acerbic sense of humor. He had opinions on people, on everything that went around him. And you could engage with him even if you had very strong ideological differences. Shakti was affable and yet reclusive in many ways. He was accessible and yet could be insular. It could appear to be a contradiction, but even when you met him after a long break, you could connect with him very easily. The other thing that some of you who've known him would recall is that a lot of people, when they either retire from service or leave the service, begin fading out. In Shakti's case, it's the reverse. He made the Nehru Museum and Library one of the most vibrant institutions, I think, in his history. He and I had a chat when he was appointed as director of the Vajpayee University at Baroda. And he had to start an institution from scratch, with very little resources, with very little finance, and very little support from the outside. And the vibrant institution that he made that, from really something which was nothing, was remarkable. So that as I sent a short message to Surabhi that I think more than us, the country needed him. And that is the untimely demise that unfortunately we've had to face today. But if Shakti were really overseeing this ceremony, he would not want to grieve. He would not want us to be grieving. He would want us to raise a cheer and let us all raise a cheer to celebrate his life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sanju. I would now request a contemporary of Shakti's from St. Michael's School, Patna, Professor Arup Roy Chowdhury from IIT Delhi, to kindly say a few words.
Surabhi, Suhasini, Kartike. Thank you, Surabhi, for wanting me to speak here. I am from a different phase of friendship of Shakti from most of you are sitting in this room. And Shakti is there watching us, I know. We are here to celebrate his life. And there is his spirit and his life was very important to all of us. We were in school together. I have another school friend, Ambassador Ajit Kumar, who's also sitting here. And we know him probably for much longer time, excuse me, if some of you know him from before, than any of you. In school also, he was a very jolly good fellow, as you say. And probably from our batch, he'll be the first one to get into civil service, was really a revelation to all of us. He went to the civil service, he went his path on a career. I did my engineering. I went to a professional line. I went to the Middle East, I went to Southeast Asia. Both of us knew where we each other were. But it will be wrong to say that we were partying or interacting or meeting very often. When I came and joined back the public sector scenario as the head of NBCC, he was that time with the PMO, but there was no official interaction with him. As friends, we keep interacted with each other. There was a little bit of official interaction only when I was chairman of NTPC, and he was the principal secretary, Energy for Government of Delhi. And we in NTPC had given them a notice of disconnecting power. You know how traumatic it is if the capital of India goes without power. And Mrs. Dixit, who was the CM at that time, entrusted this problem to Shakti to sort it out. And that is when we realized, probably being childhood friends is thicker than water. It is almost like having blood relationship. So it's a different story that me and Shakti together worked it out, we sorted out, NTPC got the payment. I saved my face, he saved his, everything went off hunky-dory. When we were sort of coming to the culmination of our respective careers, I also took a little interest in academics. That's how I teach in IIT Delhi today. He also took a lot of interest in academics, and therefore that was one area of commonality between us. And then he went on to take the responsibility of this Buddhist setup. My maternal grandfather was a practicing Buddhist. He used to live in Rangoon, and therefore we had a lot of remnants of the Buddha in our house. In fact, I have a marble Buddha which he gave to my mother, and I got it from her, which should be more than 100 years old in my house. It's still placed in my puja place. So that was one thing which was there. But just one thing about Shakti, before I end, I don't, because people are speaking. He was always a celebration in life. There was no ego. There was no issue of a chip on his shoulder that he was in the civil service. Believe me, for 20 years I have been CMD of NBCC and NTPC. I know many civil servants. My first batch was 1965 batch was my first batch. My last secretary was 1982 batch. So I've seen the whole range of them. I've seen how they change in life with positions. Up to joint secretary, they're different. Beyond that, they become different. Then the moment they become 60, they become different. So this is reality in life. But that was not Shakti. That was not Shakti. With everybody of his class, his friends, wherever he made friends, Shakti Sinha was Shakti Sinha. They could approach him, talk to him, he was as friendly. You invite him, he will come to you. There was no ego, there was nothing. That was the good part, Survi, and I met you through him only. And I think we should celebrate his life. Shakti, wherever you are, we all admire you a lot, and we are going to celebrate your life.
Thank you, Professor Chowdhury. And before we bring this remembrance meeting to a close, I'd like to request Shakti's family members, specifically Karthik and Suhasini, to come and say a few words.
First of all, I'd just like to thank everyone who has come, both in person and those who are watching. Thank you for your kind words and your support. Excuse me. I haven't really prepared anything or can't really think of much to say. So I just want to say thank you. And there's some water and tea downstairs, if anyone, and some biscuits, I believe, if anyone would like to have. Thank you.
Sind Sie bereit? हैं आप उसमें है दर्द से दिल्ली में रहते हैं नहीं दिल्ली में अभी हैं कुछ उनके साथ ये मिस मार्फुल विचित्रा शर्मा ये मिस्टर रवि माधव टच में
तुम्हारी मम्मी को उसने नहीं देखे थे हाँ सुभाष जैसे कि वो गई थी शामिल वो शामिल की बेटी थी because he told me your name. So he doesn't know the names. So मैंने बताया मैंने कहा पत्नी तमाम जैसी. That's what he said. He said, did your mama come? हाँ हाँ. कोई ना what would anybody do? Just that you feel it. Chal, the Vaswasini is very bad. She's closest to you to be honest with you. Oh, we have blocked him, I'm sorry. Catch up.
कैमरा सामने लगा दिया आपने थोड़ा सा पीछे चलो थोड़ा सा पीछे लो बिल्कुल ही सामने चले गए यार नहीं बनेगा थोड़ा सा पीछे लो ना भैया
नहीं मिले थे और बेचारे रास्ते में रुके थे दिल्ली में, ताकि गाड़ी से जाना था, इतना लंबा जर्नी खत्म हो रही दिल्ली में रुकेंगे 2 दिन रुकेंगे। शक्ति आ रही था मॉस्को, रशिया जा रहा था, बोला एयरपोर्ट जाने के वक्त में रास्ता में रुकेंगे, वही आया था। और उसके बाद वापस जब आया तब हम नहीं और जानवी और मैथ्यू की मदर, मैथ्यू के भाई, कार्तिक बुलाया था खाना खाने, हम लोग सब मिलकर जानकी भी सबको देखी, सबसे दोस्ती की, लोग खूब अच्छा लगे। अब तो 2 साल से नहीं, लेकिन उस टाइम हम उसको बहुत टोके थे। उनसे बात हम पूछते बात करते थे, बुलाता था मेरा टिकट है परसों का, पहले सुन रही थी, फिर मेरे एक फ्रेंड थे कॉलेज के, वो अब दिल्ली छोड़ करके बैंगलोर जाते थे, वो बोली कि आप उसे क्या चाहिए आदमी को जाना रहता है।
Oh, thank you. Hey. Rồi. Thank you for taking care.
आपका ऑपरेशन
यहाँ पे है तो उसने कुछ तो किया
उसमें डायरेक्टर से बात करके टाइम फिक्स कर दिया था, मना कर गए
बहुत सालों से कोई भी है बट एडवांटेज इन फॉरेस्ट नोबडी कैन टेल
exact same time.
दो दिन से तो मजा आदमी यहाँ का दूर घर Give a bear hug to Nina. Thank you.
बैठिए